I'd like to call the meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and Environment to order on this fine October 10th. Weather's crazy. I'm Ross Seedy, City Councilor Mynarski, and your chairperson today. Let me just start off with land acknowledgement. Actually, we are meeting here in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples. We're also in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We receive our water from Shoal Lake 40 First Nations in Treaty 3. And as yesterday, I will just say that our natural gas and electrical systems are throughout Manitoba in Treaties 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Would you move the minutes? Oh, no, sorry. Councilor Mays, would you move the motion for?
Move the motion to have Councilor Chambers attend virtually.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. So with me today are my colleagues, Councillor Mays from St. Vital, Councillor Rollins from the Fort Rouge East Fort Garry Ward, and via Zoom we have Councillor Marcus Chambers from, I always get it wrong, the St.
Norbert St. River.
St. River, yeah, okay, good, yeah, ward. And with us also today from the administration, we have Mr. Tim Shanks and his team. Sorry, I'm not going to do that. And also, we also have our senior clerk with us today. It's Leah. Leah Howell. Councillor Rollins, would you move the minutes of the previous meeting?
So moved.
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Have delegations today?
No delegations today.
No. Okay, then we'll move right into our first report, which is a request for one more extension on rate changes related to our sewer system, I believe.
Yes, it's the 2025 to 2027 revised sewer volume rates. We're asking for one more extension. That's the 30 days. Our intent at this time, or target at this time, is to have this report ready for the November meeting. That's what we're working towards. I think we've mentioned this before. Obviously, we've been in discussions. Public service and the political part of it have been in discussions with other levels of government to kind of sort out a funding approach for the rest of the budget required for Project 3. But yeah, 30-day extension is the request here now. We're very close and intending to come here for.
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Couple of questions. So 2-year rate report that would kick in effective April 1, 2026.
It will be January 1st. It would, I think.
Okay.
When that ideally, I think in the past when we have rate reports in the first few months of the calendar year, they bump them to like you don't want to retroactively for rates. But yeah, no. If you think about it, the current. So we try to approve rates in 4-year blocks,
Right.
With the option of coming mid 4-year block at any time if there was a need to change the rates. But our last 4-year rate plan was 2024, right? So in 2024 we had 24, 25, 26, 27. Obviously we had to change the last year with to try to factor in our plans to fund Project 3. So that was the rate report this past March was for this year's rates, and only the council only approved the 1-year rate. So we had an approval to change the rates for 2025. So that 4-year plan, we departed from the 4-year plan for 2025. We're required by this motion, well, and also by the practicalities of our funding, to come back before the end of this year to adjust if needed the next 2 years of the 4-year rate plan.
Right, yeah, you mentioned project 3 in there, but we haven't, is the report, it's tricky because the project 3 is going to extend over another decade perhaps. Project, so, but we don't have all the located for project 2 yet, do we?
Yes, we do. That's, I think so in the last capital budget cycle where, part of project 2 costs were, allocated to like the, not ISIP, but, the federal funding part for the infrastructure funding for, the wastewater infrastructure, like there was a funding agreement that had to be kind of finalized, the ink on for project 2. So that allocation is all for project 2. So we consider that fully funded. Project 2.
So don't you have to adjust the rates given that came in after we set the rate for 2025?
I believe this last rate report did include that funding assumption. I can
Yes.
double check on that, but funding assumption for project
In
2.
March.
Okay,
Yeah.
so difficult in that it's not in, there's nothing North End in the capital budget right now. We had this whole debate during the budget, actually. But there wasn't a budget page saying.
Oh, sorry, yes, the capital budget document that gets tabled with the budget, that has detail pages on each capital project, didn't have a capital detail sheet on project 2 because of how that budget was created, right? If it's created out of the annual budget cycle, sorry, this is like a procedural, quirk, I guess. The detail sheet, we do have a detail sheet. It accompanies the reports that come to council. But yes, I know what you're talking about. That last year's capital budget volume didn't have last year or the years before it didn't have, but I want to say it's in there now.
Okay, well, we'll see, I guess. We see
I
the
would-
budget.
I would
on
prefer
the
to be
14th. Also, is it possible, and it may not be, to break out what the impact of different capital, well, basically, to be blunt, can you break out the CSO impact versus the North End impact, or is it just reserves or what? I mean, we know due to that report from last month that the CSO were saying we think we can get this thing done if we just put in construction inflation each year of 3%. So that's pretty easy. 3% of 30 million will be, 900. It'll creep up, obviously. Start at roughly $1 million and start creeping up. So that's actually pretty small based on we're harvesting 200, 300 million-ish a year through water and sewer rates. So a $1 million increase isn't great, but are we able to break it out that way, or is it reserves or capital operating?
It would be primarily reserves, like the environmental projects reserve funds, new upgrade, like the sewage plant upgrades, but also combined sewer overflows. So the environmental projects reserve, we do report on that balance. I'll take it back and see if I can't get
I'll
it
be asking
for
about
sure.
it anyway. So yeah,
No, I do, to frame it though, like I know that with a 2-year rate report, when they look at the next 2-year cash flows, like the 2-year capital forecast for CSOs is probably in pretty good shape in terms of like a rate change for 2026 I think is unlikely to be driven by the CSO cash flows in 2026. I think we probably have capital for,
okay.
but I'll take that back and see if we can't get it.
No, yeah, and we're at 45 for another year or two. I think we don't need to start the inflation adjusting business for a little bit. Okay, thank you, Mr.
In
Chairman.
terms of rate change, if I may, Mr. Chair, in terms of rate change for 2026, do you anticipate it being in line with your presentation in the first quarter of 2025, i.e. the rate costs that you presented to this committee following budget?
That presentation, following budget that showed, the
What you
rates, yeah, what we needed, that was the city going it alone. That was the city kind of completely paying through rates. No
Right.
extra debt, no extra government funding. That would be the case if we are unable to, source different debt or source other funding. So,
So the answer is yes.
it's a possibility, yeah.
And
I mean, it's not, we're trying to avoid that.
Just to be clear, when that rates came out last year, the mayor and I both made it clear that we wouldn't be doing the pay-as-you-go cash methodology on Project 3.
yes, and what my second question is, I'm concerned that that obscured the line of sight for Winnipeggers to be able to see what's on the 4-year horizon, let alone what's on next year's horizon. So if you could respond to that as a question, what's on the 4-year horizon? What's on deck for next month? You've clearly written it because, well, if it's coming next month, it's with the mayor's office now, right? That's how our system works. You don't have another month. If it's ready for this meeting, it was done last month and so on. So if you could give us a snapshot, given that it's late, could you give us a snapshot of what we're looking at next month?
I'm pretty sure I understand the question. It's a fair question. I guess I would frame it as, like, we have been calculating different options, which aren't, as discussions on different, funding scenarios, develop, there's different ideas for things. We go and calculate different options. What would the rates look like under XYZ? It's been kind of in terms of what, where we're going to end up on this. So I would say we do have, like, it's an honest expectation to ask. Like, yes, we do have the results of a bunch of different options, but as to what option we will be landing on, that I can't speak to today, but we're hoping to have an option decided to
No
present.
problem. Just give me, you said a bunch of different options. Just give me your first two.
Well, mathematically, and I know that politically, we're not, as the chair had mentioned earlier, the direction we've heard, politically is that the go alone, cash only options not, wouldn't be supported. But I mean, mathematically, that's what we presented before. The numbers are relatively the same. If we had full funding from other levels of government for 100% of the project, I mean, there'd be no impact to rates. But I mean, that's not a realistic option either. So I'd say that the range would be bounded by, that extreme case that we mentioned before, and something
So then,
less.
In between the 100% amount, right? The go it alone, which you did provide in last fiscal's report, right? And 100% of the funding is funded by other governments, right? In there lies a formula, right? Because you're going to be presenting something. And you've mentioned that these two options, the go it alone, political direction is that that's not an option on the table. And you've mentioned that other government funding, also not an option. So provide the formula if you can, or the top two principles that you're considering when presenting to council on the budget concerning this item.
I should clarify. I shouldn't say that it's that any other government funding is impossible. I would presume there's been all sorts of public and commitments from certainly the province about.
Sorry,
trying to help
I'm just repeating what I heard you say,
Yeah.
which is the second option, which was no impact rates in theory if they all came in. So if you could, provide what your advice would be in terms of maybe top two principles that you'd like this council to consider when looking at those two divides.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, like, I didn't mean that, no other government funding, would be realistic. I think that it's realistic to assume there'd be some other government
Sure.
funding.
understand.
I just meant, I was maybe, inappropriately flippant to say, there'd be, all the money would show up, for us and we didn't have to pay anything. And that was, kind of theoretical. I guess I'm not really prepared to hang our hat on a number right now, just because to your point, fair point, that there's certainly the model is a calculation, but there's more than just the Project 3 funding as a factor. There's a bunch of different other assumptions too in terms of other cash flows. Like I just want to manage expectations. Like even if Project 3 disappeared somehow, the utility has all sorts of projects and cash flows going on, and that can lead to adjustments in the rate year to year. Ideally, those would be in the realm of inflation, but not not as dramatic as what we had presented earlier this year. I mean, obviously, this is a unique situation.
And I understand they're going to be in budget this year. Do you understand that?
Sorry, that it's going to be
They won't happen outside of budget It'll
at
happen
the same
inside
time. Yes, so that you can.
this year.
I believe, like I believe the city's aiming to table the budget before the end of the calendar year for sure. So our rate report should be available at the same time.
So it meant surprise utility bills last year, affordability pressures that arguably, given the latest update from CAO with Winnipeggers trying to call in and get and pay their bills, being between 45 and 3 hours. If you owned a business, that's worse, right? And you're trying to anticipate costs here. When Winnipeggers are looking at well, what is, they're watching this, they're watching me attempt to ascertain what the formula is, what some top principles are in looking at that formula. They would see sort of very black and white terms of either we go it alone, which are the numbers we have, or, in theory, other governments might come and take them. I'm not sure that they'd, are you saying just wait till next month for the rate report and for all of this to be revealed?
Well, yes, like we're working on finalizing the rate report. So it's not.
For me, it's surprise political direction that prevented that line of sight. It prevented that saw that obscuring. So the chair is perhaps the recipient of some of these questions too, because that was an obscuring. But how about for the department? Do you think the phone lines will be less than 3 hours by the time the new rates roll around? So that the calculation for Winnipeggers, it's not impact after impact after impact of not even being able to pay their bills, not hearing clarity from a council on where we're going this month. It may or may not be in budget next month. And in the meantime, for Winnipeggers, they're still trying to pay their bills from last year and experiencing hourly, wait times if they're trying to clarify where did council go in 2025, and we have no clarity on what's happening in 2026. Is that a pressure you're kind of behind the scenes working on?
Well, absolutely, we're working on like the utility billing center call wait times are top of mind. We're doing a lot of things there to try to manage that. The wait time has been steady around the average wait time. Sorry, we've been around 43 minutes for the last 2 months. That's obviously it's not acceptable. We've had that kind of wait time before. It's that it's complicated right now because a lot of folks, as you mentioned, and it's not just sewer, right? I mean, we made changes to how we fund garbage collection as well. So with a lot of the issues we have right now with the billing center, we do have a lot of alternate ways customers can contact us, and we've been trying to get more buy-in for that. We have a lot of web forms or things like some folks are in the hold queue waiting for things that they can do online with a web form, and we're trying to get more take up on that. We do the IVR, the voice you hear talking to you when you're online can list some of the things where you can do online without having to talk to somebody. So we're trying to steer people away from to try to help manage that call time. We are looking at a bunch of different tools to implement in terms of call screening. There's some AI tools we're looking at to try to look at the other backlog we have, and not them trying to air all our dirty laundry here, but the email backlog is also frustrating for customers as well, because we have a longer turnaround time on some of those emails. So there's a way. We're looking at some more automated initial response to emails, because sometimes a lot of time is spent going back and forth with customers getting information we need to actually answer their questions, account numbers, details like that. So yes, I guess what am I trying to say? We're the UBC and wait times we're working very hard on to try to move the needle in a positive direction. I certainly want to clarify, though, it's not. Back to the rate conversation, we're not trying to create or withhold any information in any way or form. We're trying to get a clarity on our own plan to fund this project with a level of certainty, so that we can bring it forward as a proposed rate for consideration. So
you think that requires another month because you're not clear on
yes.
how you want to fund it?
Yes, it's not finalized yet. So yeah, I think
Not
that's fair.
finalized. It's not with the CAO yet.
Nobody finalized in terms of the issue. One of the biggest challenges of this is that it depends on we're trying to seek and establish and verify funding amounts from other levels of government, and so that's kind of outside the city's own administrative control in terms of our timeline. Public service, administrative control and timeline. So, we could prepare a report and put it through our RIS and get it into the agenda on our own timelines, but that doesn't. The other two levels of government don't necessarily factor into that. So we do have external parties we're trying to get agreement on. If that makes sense. Yes, I do.
And you have a key
Would be
meeting.
big news.
Well, we're working to try to get this to the November SBC for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to make a comment regarding, it's not just this project. The principle of City Hall over quite a number of decades is on major projects, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So that's what your political side is trying to do, is 1/3, 1/3, 1/3.
But you won't be successful in that, Councillor Edie, because the federal government has come out with they don't have a major program that they've decided on yet. The provincial government's budget's already gone, so we're not among the timing. So is there something that the political piece doesn't understand about the timing of either the provincial budget or the federal?
We have a good idea what
Statement.
they're doing.
Are you thinking you're close? Are you thinking you're close to some big news?
Not involved.
You're not
It comes
involved.
directly with the province or the federal government, but our
Don't
public
take it personally.
service,
I was there.
our public service and the policy wonks in the mayor's office are, right? You know that, so.
What I was wondering, Councillor Edie, seeing as, there's a lot of political decisions here, is one of the considerations in the mayor's office and on EPC, the implementation timelines that we gave the public service last year that resulted in the 3-hour wait times and seniors on the phone for 45 minutes that don't have access. Is that one of the considerations when we're choosing not to have the report on this, on the agenda today?
The budget's coming along. The capital sheet is related to what we would see in the rate report, right? They only need this 30 days and the rate report will be out because it has to start January 1st. And I also want to point out, and I was going to ask this question, you bring up the billing part. So like there's people who, you know, sold their house, they're trying to get a reading and they can't get that done, right? Because of those waits. But there's a mail strike. One would always assume that if there's a rate change, in your quarterly bill as it stands today, we would have an insert there, one would hope, that would explain why, to some degree, it's gone up. Whatever amount that is. How would we inform the public about that range is? I guess it's only calling into Water and Waste. Is that right?
No, we did bill inserts. We have information on the web.
Yeah.
Uh,
Councillor, you're speaking specifically to if there was a postal strike, if it was ongoing?
Right now, they said they've changed it to a rotating strike across the country, but there is a mail strike on, yes.
Yeah. So over half of our customers are now in my utility. So 110,000 plus are getting their bills electronically. So what we do there is we do have information on our web page about rate increases. So there is one now right on the sewer volume rate increase and the waste management fee increase that were introduced in April. And we would do the same thing for those customers. For those customers who are getting paper right now, if they're not getting their bills sent, they're still required to hopefully get on my utility. So we're encouraging people. There's information on the city's website page on the strike impacts. We have a list of things and information on people. Yes, they would have to call the utility billing center to find out what their bill is, or the best thing to do is to sign on to my utility, if at all possible.
Also, Roland's expectations of what it's going to happen is really what's going to happen.
It's really right. I missed that. It's really what, Mr. Chair? I missed that.
Well, as you expressed, rates are going to come, high volumes of calls are going to come in. So how are we going to deal with it? So I'm just saying, I don't know how many more people are going to get on my utility or not, but
I think your ward residents and some of my ward residents, whether they're older or they don't have computers or they don't have the, they've never paid that bill that way and so they don't want to. It's very unrealistic. And so that's why I remain concerned that we fundamentally don't have a plan as council. And I'm really concerned about the obscuring of the rates with, with obviously what is political direction, discussing meetings that may or may not happen and may or may not have any impact on the rates that we have to do, which means that it's once again a political decision on what the rate is. And so when the department is unable to answer that, I don't know why, Mr. Chair, you're not stepping in with what the principles you've laid out between you and
Gave
Mr.
you the
Mayor,
principle that's
who made it
always
up
stood
last
here
year.
politically at City Hall, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. That's always stood on major projects. for this
magical
city.
thinking, it's not
Can I
happening, no.
ask a question then?
Yes, please do, sir.
If we're looking at a model around project 3 and you're saying we already have project 2 accounted for, budgeted, what's the federal, provincial, city breakdown on project 2 then?
That would be, I might have it with me actually. If I don't, I can get it to you.
All the video we're seeing of them coming into community
Sorry, give me a minute.
debatable. His lyrics are literally just saying,
It's close to,
Can you shut it down?
it's close to 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. I want to say we're on the hook for a little bit more than 1/3, but there we are.
It's almost 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but not.
So what about billion?
Yes, project 2.
Yes.
Um, biosolids, Winnipeg is about 332 million, Canada 366 million, and Manitoba 335 million. So biosolids, we got basically the third. With the CHIP funding and accelerated funding that was announced by the province last year. So that I want to say would have been in, I believe we provided those numbers in, if not in the rate report, it'll be in the FSR, the financial status reports that we provide. Tuesday's SPC Finance. So there'll be that those reports should be published right now.
So the chip stuff extends over. This is the transportation stuff.
This was specific to water and wastewater infrastructure. There was a part of CHIF that was for capacity for housing, relating it to capacity, the system's capacity to treat so they could support housing. I just wanted to say just for clarity though, we're talking about like funding agreements and funding numbers and funding splits are, the kind of overarching topic, but as that gets down to us calculating rates come down to cash flow and I'm just trying to manage it. So when we talk about like the big cash expenditures for project 3 are not happening in 2026, they're happening a few years out. So a 2026 and 2027 rate model will show anticipated the impacts of that cash flow and talked about the principles of us when the utility looks at when we're trying to establish rates is obviously we're trying to keep the rates as low as possible, but we're also trying to smooth the rates. We don't, there's a factor in there where we don't want to jump the rates up and down dramatically from year to year to try to help people, budget appropriately and provide some cost certainty. So there's an attempt to be very realistic about the cash flows and to be very an attempt to try to smooth those rates up and down as they go. The tying it back to the UBC wait times and people trying to submit, you could submit water meter readings without phoning us. You can do that directly on the web, or you can phone and do the telepay thing, or the you just type in your numbers. You don't have to talk to anybody to do that.
Automated.
That's a different voice cue. The people on hold are having questions about things, or what we're struggling with right now is there's a huge component of people on hold for things that they don't need to be on hold for. And that's why we're trying to improve the tools we have, build more awareness of the tools we have. Because even if that takes 10%, 20% of those people out of the queue, it does reduce that queue. And that's what we're trying to do. I just thought I would add that for context.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may, Councillor Chambers.
Thank you for the discussion. Just a couple of questions that I have in terms of this project and the revised sewer rates and partnerships with the other levels of government. Does Water and Waste do kind of an environmental scan to see which other jurisdictions are applying for infrastructure funding for wastewater projects. I know that in the area just to the south of us, the RMF show and such, there's a $235 million wastewater plant that's being developed there. And again, just wondering if you're doing environmental scans to see what other cities or other jurisdictions are applying for wastewater, and how, and whether they're or not they're being approved or not.
I'd say for the specific to the department, I'm not aware of any formal environmental scan reports. I think corporate finance does monitor different levels of government and the funding opportunities that are offered that way. So I wouldn't want to say that, you know, the public service isn't doing that, but for specific to the department, and we do participate in planning opportunities to at least be aware of what the surrounding municipalities and other nearby jurisdictions are up against in terms of their own funding challenges. And then of course, regionally, like we do participate, you know, Canadian Water Network, Canadian Water and Wastewater Association, this sort of thing. So we do network with other utilities in terms of, you know, trying to share lessons learned and this sort of thing. But I can't point right now. I'd have to go back to see. I can't point to a report where we've done an actual environmental scan to say, here's the queue in people asking for money. So.
Okay. With respect to larger businesses that use copious amounts of water and waste, are there special rates for them, or, you know, is that negotiated, or how does that work?
No, there used to be block rates where larger users had a different rate structure. The city walked that back, I want to say probably more than 10 years ago, anyway, quite a while ago.
Started to walk it back.
Well, we don't, right now it's a flat rate. It's everybody pays the same rate for water. That's really where the industry is kind of going, the water utility industry is kind of going towards. It's more of a true cost of water recovery. And it's very, I mean, understanding there's economic, you know, business support type reasoning behind that kind of approach. But really, it's it kind of goes against the idea of water conservation if you're actually discounting someone to use more water. So we've gone to a flat rate in our rate structure. So
Okay. Yeah, I was saying it more of from a different perspective. In order for water conservation, charge them a higher rate so that
no, we haven't swung that far over yet. No, it's a flat rate for everybody. Everybody pays the unit cost, same unit cost.
There, sure.
Okay.
You do pay a larger rate for the size of your meter connection. Like if I'm a large water intensive industry, I'll likely have a larger water connection. No, that's a sewer discount program. Yeah. So there is, sorry, if I was just pointing something out, your water bill you're paying the same flat rate. But there are discount programs for discharge to the sewer license on the way in. Like there's a discount program for how much your sewer rate contributes to the system. Right? Yeah, that's still in place. But I can't remember the exact details, but we do have. I think it has to do with.
It's for customers who use water to manufacture, assemble, or process goods and materials. So they have to use more than $150,000 of sewer services, and then they apply for a discount. And it has to be, you know, it'd be like a Coca-Cola or Pepsi, you know, like where they're using water, but then they're not discharging.
Where there's no discharge. Okay.
Right, where there's
Okay.
no discharge.
Like the idea that you've taken a bunch of stuff in and then it leaves as a product, it's not going into the system. So because your sewer bill is basically a factor of your water bill, that we don't measure the sewer leaving your property. So if I'm a big bottling company, I say, well, I'm not really putting that much. I'm taking a lot in the water, but I'm not putting that in the sewer. Why am I paying for that? So that's the logic behind that.
So in that case, it'll be a disproportional from water intake to water outtake.
Yeah. So they're still paying the same rate for the water, but then
But not the sewer.
not the sewer. Yeah.
then they get a 10% discount on the total dollar value of sewer services over 150,000.
That's what, okay, 10%. It's good when you're paying over 150,000. That's a year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have to, there's a whole process. They have to have sales outside the city of at least 25% of the total sales in a calendar year. And they have to go through an audit when they apply.
Any other-
I had another question when.
I just want to confirm that Councillor Chambers, you're done.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Good questions. Okay, Councillor Means.
Almost apologetic, but I'm looking at the finance agenda report for biosolids, and the project funding forecast is external debt 460, federal government ISIP, provincial government ISIP 167, provincial government strategic infrastructure basket, which has its own complexity, and retained earnings 106, and EPR, the Environmental Project Reserve 70. So none of those look like the numbers we just got, which were all sort of something started with threes, so 366, 335. Like if we're in for external debt of 460 and 106 on retained earnings and 70 on environmental projects, that's close to six. Like, where are we getting the additional 100 and something million for each of the federal and provincial governments?
The reporting period for that report probably doesn't postdate the finalization of those agreements.
It's
Which we
2029.
haven't seen these agreements then, right?
You're saying there's a new agreement?
No, I'm saying that the finalization of the CHIF funding maybe isn't reflected in this reporting period of this FSR. I apologize. I don't have preparation to speak to this report today. It was for Tuesday, but we'll have
In my own
Yeah,
defense,
July,
you
yeah.
referenced it.
Yeah, no. Well, because there's so with the city has been working on finalizing the CHIF funding, right? Like the paperwork. I mean, I would defer to corporate finance on that, but the ideal the announced funding for CHIF and that additional funding from the province over the last winter, that would be directed to biosolids, project 2. So yeah,
But we don't want to incorporate anything till everything's signed off, right? Like,
yeah, no, it wouldn't be. It's not reflected in this stuff until the
we need to, yeah. I think we got trapped once some time ago.
So the city's share is somewhere between, what was the number you gave me, 335 and
yeah,
637.
Yeah, like the target is to split this 3 ways. So the additional money that would be coming through CHIF is being, the point I'm trying to make is the additional money we're getting from CHIF, finalizing from CHIF, is going to project 2, not project 3.
That's federal, eh?
CHIF's federal, yeah. Well, but then there's matching dollars from the province or something. I'm sorry, I would defer to.
The province just redirected our,
The motion was back in September, right? The motion was for the public service to go and talk to the federal provincial government, right? That's the motion that is before us, that another 30 days is being asked for, but it was that the public service be directed to report back to SPC Water and Waste by the third quarter of 2025 with an update on federal and provincial cost sharing opportunities for Project 2 and Project 3. When we don't understand what CHIF is and how it matches with the province, and when we're saying that it's the mayor's office that's doing the federal provincial work, I'm at a loss as to why to grant the extension on the one hand, and what would be accomplished in that intervening month. Is that fair? Because if we're looking at a briefing that you have to do Tuesday, and we're not certain on the federal funding mechanism, mechanisms, what on earth would one be saying at this committee next month?
Well-
Other than there's political direction.
Well, the financial status report for biosolids is being presented on Tuesday. We bring along the folks that prepare the report, and we have it's chaired by not chaired by, but the CFO is there to speak to financial matters. Like the Standing Policy Committee of Finance is where the real details of the financials will be discussed. In terms of how CHIF works, I mean, I'm not involved with the applications to CHIF funding or the understanding of it. So
And through the chair, when I have a report that is due to this committee, that is overdue, and it says the federal and provincial cost sharing, and I have a resource that says I'm not involved, then let's get the CFO here. Because clerk certainly believes that this item is for today, for this committee, and not for Committee of Finance. The clerks are the first folks that will say, then this shouldn't be here, it should be at Finance. If the human resource in front of us is legitimately saying, not me, then I'd like the person that's here, we can take a 5-minute break and get the CFO here. Because this item is for provincial cost sharing opportunities, federal and provincial. I have heard you. I don't, if it isn't you, it's not you. But in terms of this rationale on granting an extension, I'm also not hearing so that we can get the CFO here. This has been in front of this committee for months now, for months. So I'll leave it to you. If the committee is ready to move on, I'll just vote against it because this is incomprehensible to me.
This is a request
As a
for an
brief.
extent. Councilor Rollins, I get your point. And I'll just point out that the mayor of Winnipeg has, under the mayor's portfolio, intergovernmental relations. So that's why the mayor's office is working on it with other levels and having discussions.
The governance of it's obscuring the governance, Councillor Edie, when there is a motion that council has directed that even the mayor
Asking for
cannot.
30 days, all this stuff will be made clear.
No, you're describing political interference. You're not.
There's no political interference.
It is.
Can I make,
Like you. Go ahead, Councillor Mays.
I turn to Ms. Dallin and say, can you please register me in delegation for the Finance Committee? But also, Tim, if you would, I wrote down the 3 numbers suggesting a third, but I didn't record who was which. So I've got the city Fed prob, but I don't want to trip over my own feet. So I had 332 was.
Sorry, and these are, and I should qualify, these aren't official numbers, obviously, these are my own notes that I've been carrying along. These are working notes, probably shouldn't have tabled them. But yeah, the 332 would have been city, Canada's 336 and the province 335. And that's a working split from a few months ago.
332 city, 336 Fed.
366.
366, that's what I have written. Okay, got it, thank you.
All right. There's answers we need. We're not going to get them and the report will be here 30 days. So, do any of the 3 of you want to move a
Yeah.
motion?
I think I'm on the finance agenda here, if you give me a second. I'll move the requested extension.
Right? All those in favor?
I,
Who's opposed?
I'll be marked in opposition for the reasons I stated.
All right, that passes 3-1. Thank you. Report number 2, which gets at the real important thing, Councillor Rollins. Report number 2 is housing affordability and utility rate increases.
Yes, this report was, this was tabled this was carried over from last meeting, as the report, speaks about the things describes at high level the things we were going to, the changes we mentioned we were going to make changes to the HO program and how we set it up and that sort of the application process and accessibility improvements and this sort of thing. But it didn't detail them in it didn't have the details of what the changes we would actually make. So it was carried over. What I do have today is basically I can verbally update what a report coming next month will ask for permission to make these changes to the H2O policy. So that wasn't very clear, actually.
Oh, that's okay. I'm with you because I was going to ask to lay this matter over for 30 days so that you can come back with those details. And so I'm with you because I think I read you like yesterday's news. That was my going to be my request, is that we lay the matter over for 30 days because I want to see an outlining of more time-bound implementation.
Well, so the Help to Others program that we run here is governed by a council-approved policy. So when we make changes to it, when we propose changes to it, council has to approve those changes. So that's a separate report. So that report, drafted, approved, it's in the system. It's going to be here November, like the next meeting to vote on, and it's specific to, hey, here's the changes we want to make in the H2O policy. So it's kind of like the action item from the report that's before you today, right? Like the report before you today says, hey, we're going to change the policy, and then what we do to the policy, we didn't include those details in this report. Part of it was because we were trying to align with Hydro's Neighbors Helping Neighbors program, so that because it's a similar type program that helps with utility bills, that's run by the Salvation Army as well, and so we wanted to kind of coordinate, to streamline, to do it, to see if we could collaborate on that and get the same kind of process in place, and then get the word out.
And the eligibility requirement.
Eligibility and communication of it out to everybody. So I can speak verbally about the changes that we are going to make to the policy if that helps. Like, for example, currently for eligibility, you have to be facing disconnection. Your household income has to be below the StatsCan pre-tax low-income cutoff. So one of the things we're going to change, we want to make it post-tax, so that they'll match Hydro and make it a little bit more, increase the eligibility a bit. Your account still has to be in the residence has to be in your name. Currently, you can't be on any other social assistance. We want to change that so that you can be on employment and equity assistance. Currently, it's a one-time in your life use thing. If you apply to the H2O program, if you used it before, you can't ever use it again. We're going to change that and say you could do it every 2 years, every 24-month period. The other things in terms of the application process, right now it's a little bit document intensive. You have to fill out an application form on My Utility first. Then you got to book an appointment with the Salvation Army, and you have to bring a specific proof of ID and proof of income, like a tax assessment from the previous year, that sort of thing. We want to change all that so that you still make your appointment with the Salvation Army, but at that appointment, they will walk you through help you fill out the application. So you're not doing the paperwork ahead of time on your own. You have some help with that. We're going to be more flexible with proof of income. Maybe look at bank statements instead of just a tax assessment. Tax assessments don't necessarily reflect your current situation. It's last year's taxes. What if I've lost my job now? That sort of thing. Another thing that's more of a the current application process asks you to submit in writing. Why are you applying for this? What circumstances are causing hardship? That can be a barrier. I mean, it can be very awkward for people, uncomfortable for people, especially to put something in writing and then submit it to the city. Like, these are my my personal circumstances right now. I lost my job or divorced or something. So we've changed that. I mean, there's still an assessment done by this third party, by the you know, verbally with the Salvation Army. They can share what they want to share, but that formal kind of putting that in writing, we want to remove that as a barrier that makes people uncomfortable. So that's another thing we're going to change. And then the outreach. I guess the big thing is the outreach. Right now, really, you know, we have it on our website. We have it on the Salvation Army website, and when you're calling, when you're talking to our billing center, they can offer it as a resource. They can explain it, but other than that, it's not really widely known or promoted. So we've got a plan to engage with I think there's like 7 different areas here in the province of Manitoba. First off, like the Department of Families for Employment and Income Assistance, Manitoba Supports for Persons with Disabilities, Disability and Health Supports Unit, Child and Family Services, the Manitoba Rent Relief Fund, some health, seniors, long-term care, Manitoba Seniors Guide. We want to get that information in there. But beyond the government, there's community organizations like 211 Manitoba, the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization of Manitoba, we've Seniors Resource Center, Agape Table, Mama Way Center, you know, Main Street Project, Mount Carmel Clinic, Trauma's Neighborhood Renewal Corporation, Spence Neighborhood Association, West Central Women's Resource Committee. Like, there's a lot of areas we want to reach out and make sure that the information is available to these different groups so that it's more widely known and we increase the uptake where it's needed. So,
So the North End Community Renewal Corp.
So those changes will be in the policy change report coming in November for your consideration and approval.
I want to, you know, I appreciate that very much. I'm concerned about implementation. I would move to lay the matter over for 30 days so that they can be understood concurrently. And in part, the motion did ask for the expansion of the existing affordability program, including increased visibility and outreach for programs like Salvation Army's H2O program. What you're providing verbally absolutely sounds like exactly that. And so that's why I would motion to, move it to next month. It also asks for an analysis of the correlation between, rent increases, higher utility rates and more. And that was changed to accept the Canadian Center for Policy Alternatives data at the chair's request. It is an excellent report. I don't know if you're done presenting it, but it's an excellent report. My concerns is that there is both that it's moved along and that you have the opportunity to detail those actions that you are verbally in writing. And I am also interested if whether or not you considered shorter term relief measures, and including something temporary that would accompany the H2O program. In particular, you mentioned the prevention of disconnections as being a barrier that you considered in the program. But if there's something that you're considering for this winter, I'm interested.
Not at this point.
You mean like, no,
Like
sorry.
you're talking about an additional program other than what we're doing with H2O. We haven't looked at anything. I mean,
No, but so when the policy gets, if we get the policy changes approved in November, then we would.
we'll be ready. Oh yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have packages ready to go. But what you're asking, Counselor, is are we doing anything in addition to H2O? And we don't have any plans at this point. This is funded through the rate, right? So
We do have the water leak.
the
Yeah.
Water Leak Credit Program is a different program. That's if you have a leak, right? And you have a $20,000 bill and you can prove that you've done repairs and all, right? No, we haven't had anything in addition. I do know that there's some information that we found out earlier is that there's a Manitoba, the province of the Manitoba Rent Relief Fund. It's not just for rent, it actually, you can use it to cover utilities. So that is more information that we have that we didn't have before.
Like everybody, all those organizations you talked about,
Yeah,
we should let them know about all the programs.
and if there are other organizations, Counselor, that you think we should contact, can you let us know?
Yes.
It may not show up in the report because the report's in already, but I will take, like, the North End Community Renewal Corporation, I'm adding that to my list.
Yeah, because they actually have, they have housing as part of their portfolio, right? So they're delivering on the housing improvement zone, and they also have landlord tenant worker that assists to all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Councillor Chambers, you have a question, sir.
Yeah, question and comment, and thank you again for the discussion on this. In terms of the H2O program, you know, just going through it and whatnot, it does use kind of vague language, and I'm wondering whether it's, you know, Councillor Luke's talked about writing it in more plain language, you know, using more language. You know, you've got something in there updating the, you know, adjusting eligibility, let's say. Could we use something like broadening eligibility or expanding eligibility? And then simplifying the application to like a one pager. And again, using plain language. Is that something that you're looking at as well through this? And then again, in terms of comment and adding a group, I don't know if you've Manitoba Start, which is an immigrant start center here, just on Portage Avenue. Again, they would be a good resource to contact to ensure that newcomers or new Canadians that may be finding their way in terms of employment and up against utilities, not familiar with the processes here, again, educating the public, including newcomer populations.
So everything we do, it will be plain languaged. So you will see in the report that is coming next month is the council policy update. So it will be, it was reviewed by legal services, so I'll leave it that way, but we will not be using that language. Our communications team will be revamping the application form, the web, the information we have on our web, any marketing material that we send out to all of these groups, everything will be plain language, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So Councillor Rollins is moving to lay this over to our November meeting.
Would it be in concurrently with what they have planned, so.
Yeah, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Your chairperson needs a 5-minute break. So we'll be back. We'll just take a short 5-minute break. Here. Okay, we're back in order, and we are now moving on to report item 3 related to research data on our climate change action plan.
Yeah, I think this comes out of the CARC committee, which was a consultant's report that we got. I will read out the report. There's an executive summary and handily provided. So I don't know if Becky wants to say anything, but otherwise I can just move it for information.
I'll just give a brief overview of what the report is for. So this is coming from the Climate Action Resilience Committee. I would say it's their second major project that they have completed. They worked with Prairie Climate Center to do a jurisdictional scan across Canada and North America, looking at tools and mechanisms that municipalities use to be able to communicate how climate change has been integrated into decision making. So this aligns with their mandate in advising council on climate actions, but also connecting with community on what the city is doing about climate change. So we're really looking at those tools and mechanisms that can be used so that people can understand how the city is considering climate change in its decision making. They put together examples of tools and mechanisms under 3 categories, being equity and justice, mainstreaming and strategic implementation, and transparency and communication. Those are detailed in the report. And they've identified that these can be built upon things that the city is already doing and can be considered within the update to the climate action plan. So this report has been shared with the senior management team climate steering committee and is being distributed to departments. It's going to be considered as part of the climate action plan update project. And next steps for the climate action resilience committee is that they're going to spend more time reviewing the report. There's a lot of great information in there and looking at how they want to integrate that into their 2026 work plan.
Ms. Radis? Any questions from any of my other colleagues? Councillor Mays is prepared to move already, or?
I'll move to receive it as information.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, that is carried. Report number 4, motion from council, Councillor Mays and
Ron.
application of cost saving lessons CSO project to the NEP. New paper.
Well, my motion, so shall I speak to it? Tim appears.
I think it's, or you can speak, I could provide some context if that helps, please, or before or after. So like, so 2 things, I guess I want to provide context on, like, first off, lessons learned in general, like lessons learned and what lessons learned are we looking at for our mega projects? There is a standard process after a capital projects to look at lessons learned and pass them on. That's kind of a I don't want to take away from it, but it's kind of a routine process. But for the sewage plant upgrades that we've been doing, because they're such large projects, very complicated projects, and we spend a lot of effort in analyzing what has been done for each phase. Now, our biggest example so far has been the South End plant. And so because the South End plant upgrade, has been very unsuccessful in terms of schedule wise. It's very long and you can't sugarcoat it. It's taken an extremely long time. We did look closely at what were the pain points in delivering that project, and let's avoid and improve and do something different for the project 1, 2, and 3 in North End plant. So, and it's not a one and done thing. Obviously, it's continual. We're trying to look at continuous improvement for project delivery. So, part of those things that we looked at was even the project delivery model. Like we went with a single contract for the headworks facility, a design build instead of separate ones and phase that we did at South End. But even more than that, we maintained a market engagement with market soundings to make sure that we were going to attract bidders and have a industry kind of leading approach to project delivery. That's how we ended up with that progressive design build delivery. That's what we're doing with project 2 and with project 3. Those are kind of like the largest things I can point to as structural improvements. In terms of the smaller, more tactical things, we do review every project execution to look for what we can do differently. Our partners at Veolia help us specifically with the sewage treatment program, but lessons learned are something we're always open to. The audit, when the city audit was looking for input on where they could help, what they could audit us for, we pointed them to the North End plant. We wanted to see where we could improve at all costs. So that audit as a result of that audit, we did, obviously, there's the 47 recommendations. I would argue that those are commitments to continuous improvement as well. We have committed to future external audits regularly of the North End Plant project as we go. We don't want to assume that we've solved all the problems and we're good for the next 6 years of construction. We want to continually look under the hood and get external sets of eyes to say, where can we do better as things change and as things progress? So that's the first kind of thing I wanted to provide context on. We're absolutely all on board with any kind of motion or effort to look at lessons learned. The second thing I was going to say was like this. So the CSO program, we didn't really have. There isn't some kind of different project approach that I can point to that actually has realized, the savings for the CSO. It's not the difference in our cost estimate for our initial cost estimate for that district and where it seems to be landing as we progress along isn't really a budget savings. It's a different estimate and in the cost it's costing us. So I just wanted to caution that we're not like if there was an understanding behind the motion to say, hey, what'd you guys do to save him $100 million on CSOs? Can you do that on NUPIC? It's not really what happened. Like it's the 2018 estimate.
If I may, though, the motion does make it clear that we are talking about estimates in that first whereas clause.
Okay. Yeah. No. Fair.
We're not saying savings. We're saying the budget estimate.
Right.
It's not unimportant given the room that we have these days.
Well, but the passage of time and the progression of these construction projects that we've done, as they come in under bid or a little over bid, in the underground infrastructure that we've been doing, isn't necessarily a transferable approach to say, okay, well. Maybe the North End plant will cost, $100 million less just because of the passage of time. But we can't, there's not a mechanism I can transfer. The estimates for North End plant project, like the enhanced preliminary design for project 3, for example. I mean, that's their 30% design that's being used as a starting point for the progressive design build, a notion. In fact, our budget isn't approved for project 3 yet, as per our previous conversation.
Right.
For project 2, for example, we have a $1 billion fully funded project. It's in the development phase. The project team, with our partners there, is working to hash out the designs under that dollar value. Their process wouldn't lend to like the CSO program, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The CSO program is this annual program actualized with budgets as we go, compared to a facility project. It's I wouldn't say it's apples and oranges, but maybe it's apples and tangerines. It's kind of close, but not quite the same. So I would caution about what the expectation would be for us to identify as a lesson to be learned from the CSO, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It's fair. Thank you for all that, because it does kind of make the point I'm trying to make, which is, I've got the mayor's platform here, page 5 for Alana or members of the public watching online. At least some of the police headquarters scandal can be blamed on city council not having or seeking advice on construction policy. That was independent of the senior public service. Scott will ask council to hire an expert chief construction officer to advise the mayor and council directly and publicly on infrastructure policy and construction sector issues. So I appreciate the advice of the senior public service. I appreciate that EPC may be talking about this at each and every meeting of EPC. I don't know. But we've hired a expert chief construction
Like for
officer
me, for how many years?
to advise.
Well, you
To
said
advise the mayor,
regardless.
to advise the mayor and council directly and publicly on infrastructure policy and construction. You really can't dance around that. I mean, all we're asking is this person who we hired 6 months ago, come to the committee that deals with water and waste issues to talk to us about whether some lessons can be learned on a good news thing where we're like hundreds, arguably $1 billion underestimate. See if that can be applied. I'm not sure why we hired a person and said it's there to provide advice independent of the senior public service and that they're to advise the mayor and council directly and publicly. If we then say, well, we don't want to hear from this person directly and publicly, they're talking to EPC or the mayor's office. It's just, this is why we hired this person. They've had time to settle in. It's been more than 6 months. It's not like we have an agenda of 87 items here.
If I can
There's time to hear from this person. So that's all this is. Just come and give us a verbal report. I mean, otherwise, I'm not really sure why we've said we've hired someone to advise council directly and publicly, but you can't hear from them directly and publicly.
But I also, if I may add, Mr. Chair, when I did express concerns about the audit and in particular, the KPMG audit in particular, that clearly lays out the council that the audit finding is that council does not have the advice it needs on this major project. EPC and in particular the mayor pointed to this position specifically when I was calling for more action opposite those recommendations in budget. And so they are connected not only in the mayor's platform that Councillor Mays is reading from, but in the meeting minutes of council, in particular the budget, when he pointed to this position that was to allay my fears on an audit that said council opposite the North End plant should be concerned about the fact that administration isn't built for purpose, that, you know, Mr. Shanks, Cynthia Weeb doing it off the corner of their desk when it should be the administration, the size of the city's administration, which I realize there's differing ideas about what that audit meant, but specifically that council was not being briefed sufficiently. I am concerned about water and waste for sure, and the standing policy committee and what comes up and through the committee. Very concerned about the fact that you're not involved, Mr. Chair, that you said today. And but the mayor's office and his staff is. Here it is in the platform. So anyways, a motion I did a second on and interested in moving today.
I should be clear though, just to step back to when I made that comment about the mayor's intergovernmental and his staff do that. The CFO and the CAO are in part of that dialogue in intergovernmental affairs.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
All right, so it is
Thanks for
some
that
of the public service as well that is involved, but not at
Not
Mr. Shanks, not at Mr. Shanks level. No. I just wanted to make one point about asking for, like, CSO is a good story. So lessons learned, and these things can have a huge impact on well, I'll give you an example. So CSO, while it didn't have a specific project, presented a license requirement and we had a cost estimate related to that. And I believe it was way overestimated. And that kind of thing happens. I've seen it happen, say, with a P3, they overestimate the cost. And then they always come in under budget, don't they? When we have a project like the vertical project, project 3, as an example, or the whole new upgrade and everything. It's already such a huge cost that how much contingency you build? You put in 80% and then say, oh, we need $2 billion. And then if you agree with that, what ends up happening is that has an effect on every other capital project that we want to try to do, because it limits you in what you can do for that, because you're at your debt capacity and so on and so forth, right? So anyway, I mean, I thought the motion was good to ask, but I don't see how CSO, that there's lessons to be learned at Dupic. The lessons to be learned are what the audit said, I believe. And
To that point.
I will
think
personally,
we
I will
amended
personally ask,
decisions from this position.
I will personally,
Lessons learned.
yeah, we know that chief construction officer, so I will personally try to ensure that they are here when we're considering a rate reward, because it is what we're estimating the capital cost to be. It's going to be factored into the rates. So I think that it would be appropriate to have the chief construction officer at the table to answer some questions as well. Do you agree with me?
No, I mean,
Okay,
I
good.
wrote this
Right.
motion,
Well,
but that's fine too, if you want.
I mean, that's,
It's a new
what do you
motion.
say, all the politics, I mean, we hired this person, we paid them reasonably well. They've been here more than 6 months. I haven't seen them in this committee. Maybe he goes to finance. I don't know. But I don't really think it's out of line when you have a position that is publicly billed as reporting to council, who will report directly and publicly, independent of the senior public service. I mean, well, no, but there are no lessons to be learned from CSO. Well, when would we ever ask this person to come in? And I guess you're saying, well, ask them to come in to talk about the rate report. So that's commendable. That's good.
Let's do
Thank
that
you for
too.
that, because it just seems like, I do think I'm capable of having the occasional good idea. So yes, hearing from the chief construction officer at this committee certainly does seem to be advisable if the position is created to respond to council directly and publicly. So I don't see how you can get around that wording. So happy to move this forward. We'll see where it's heading up to council one way or the other, because it started at council, but thank you, Councillor E. That's, I think, commendable to have him come in and be here separate, independent of the senior public service for discussions of the rate.
I would like to also let you know that your chairperson has been did I say? Oh, never mind. I'm trying to find out, and I'm not really, nobody's telling me when this new governance model for these huge major capital projects, when that's coming. I still haven't heard any detail or anything, but I think that is really important as well for this committee, especially given that the first project that's going to fall under this thing is Dupic. So
Can you expand on
I just wanted to assure you.
what you mean by that, Councillor Eby?
The audit
Yes.
that Mr. Shanks referred to, and there will be continued audits as he advised, did recommend better governance structure for huge major projects like this. And the rationale behind it, as you know, is that all of council should have a lot more detail understanding in order to be the governance overseers of these huge major projects.
And what do you think is eminent to that end? What do you
I
think
don't
is-
know. I'm trying to find out because
Nothing,
I haven't heard anything
no
yet.
work that is happening towards that end. other than the status quo department oversight and this net new position that was provided. The 47 recommendations, the continued audit, the continuous audits that they've agreed to, that's the answer. We don't have an asset management person in place.
Mr. Shanks would like to speak to this.
I could just point out that like after the audit was tabled this past winter, one of the follow-up actions was to hire KPMG again to help develop a new governance model for with assets and project management department to develop a new governance model. Well, a new governance model for NewPick, but a structure that would be in place for other city mega projects. But obviously we'd be the first. So I know that there's been progress on that over the summer, and I would defer to assets and project management when that, because it would have to be come to council to propose a new governance model for the mega projects outside, our regular major capital projects committee process with FSRs and everything. So I think it was fairly public after the audit that the idea was, some kind of new steering committee, some kind of increased frequency of reporting to council, and obviously that governance model will have to reflect, a better definition of the role for the chief construction officer, and in terms of how to provide assurance input to that committee and or to council. So I do know that work is underway, and I believe they were trying to get it finished, before this winter. So, but I wouldn't want to speak to. I'm not sure where that is in terms of dates, but it's definitely a lot of work been put onto that over the past several months. So there is a new steering committee structure to be proposed for NewPick upgrades.
Colleagues, Councillor Chambers, difficult for me when you're not in the room, but anyway, go ahead, Councillor Chambers, you have a question?
Yes, and thank you for my colleagues for raising the question with regards to the chief construction officer. While he hasn't been formally invited to this standing policy committee, I'm wondering if the department has met with the chief construction officer and had an opportunity to converse or him having the opportunity to weigh in on the project and provide recommendations and advice.
Good question.
Absolutely, yes. Since the chief construction officer has come, since we're obviously one of the biggest projects going on, we've had toured the site, met the project team, try to get them up to speed on a lot of the things that are going on. To like the how. Where we end up with a formal mechanism for the reporting or input or stage gating, that's obviously still tied into this new governance model work. But in the meantime, no, we definitely have met and involved and spoken to Tom to get him the information he needs and to build awareness of our processes and projects that are going on. So yes.
And a follow-up to that, of course, we've just hired a new CAO. I met with him yesterday morning. His background, again, is in civil engineering and mechanical engineering. Have you had the opportunity to meet with him and converse and consult?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We met with the CEO and I meet regularly with them and toured the site as well for the construction site. And it's. I mean, I recognize there's a lot on the plate of the public service in terms of all the departments, but certainly our North End plant does get a lot of attention here at City Hall. So we have brought them on board. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. So, Councillor Mays, you're moving to receive this as information.
No, I'll be moving the motion. I have to say that surely if we're looking at a platform pledge that is at least some of the police HQ scandal can be blamed on city council not seeking advice that was independent of the senior public service. And that's why we need an expert chief construction officer to advise council directly and publicly to say, what are you bitching about? They've been meeting with this guy and they met with the CAO. Like, why doesn't the incongruity strike you there? Like, seriously, like, I don't know what the big impediment here, and thank you to council for saying, well, we'll have him come in and you can ask him whatever questions you want on the rate model, which I appreciate, because why would you create a position that's billed as being independent? In fact, the rationale in the platform is shame on council for not seeking advice that was independent of the senior public service. And then to say, well, we don't need to hear from this guy, he's met with the senior public service is, maybe somebody smarter than me can square that for me. But anyway, thank you, Councilor, for saying we'll have this chief construction officer invited at least to the next month's meeting.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Well, I'm just, so
I'll move the motion.
yeah, well, to be clear though, I just want you to know there really is no lesson to be learned between CSO and the vertical construction of a huge NUPIC project. I don't agree. I think it just should be received as information. So we need the chief construction officer here when we are on the rate model is going to be built on the capital budget, the capital project. Its chief construction officer hopefully can answer some questions, which because the rates are derived from that, right? So anyway, I'm going to call the question then.
I'll move the motion.
Actually, Councillor Mays moved the motion as it's requested, which is to have the chief construction officer to come and speak about lessons learned between CSO and NUPIC.
Everyone's ready to vote.
Pardon me?
Everyone's ready to vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, well, okay, so as long as, I didn't know if Councillor Chambers was moving what motion.
Yeah, confusing.
All right.
By the way.
Okay, so the question is on Councillor May's motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, Mark Me is opposed, the chairperson, and that passes. So that's on to council for October 30th, I believe, right?
Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That's carried.
Thank you.
Lessons to be learned between CSO.
Yeah, but